Hey, it's your boy Exodus here. Guys, I'm glad to be back today. We'll be starting with a topic that has eluded us for a while, right? We talked about a lot of things about cars, how they work, what things to do. We did like one video that works on showing you how, you work on work on vehicles to fix certain things. All right. One of the things is that we skipped is exhaust, right? So we might have, I think we've mentioned it here and there, exhaust here, exhaust there, intake, and all that stuff. But we never actually sat down and explained to you how the exhaust system works, right? Or I might have in other videos briefly did a quick run by. So I'm gonna give you guys a run by about exhaust. I'm actually gonna also explain towards the end of the video, probably a little rant when it comes to back pressure, right? There's a lot of people in the car scene that talks about, oh yeah, man, back pressure, man, that's bad for your back pressure. That's gonna end up, you're gonna lose power if you end up doing that. If you do a straight, no cat, no nothing, right? You should straight pipe it. And a lot of people tell you, back pressure, that's bad, man. You're gonna lose a lot of back pressure. But in this video, I'm actually going to explain to you some little scientific studies that have been done when it comes to exhaust and back pressure. So I hope I can teach you guys something new if you didn't know anything about it. So hang tight. We're going to go into the intro, and we will be right back. All right, guys, we're back. So there's a few things, right? So exhaust, it's a whole system, right? There is, I would say that the two most important parts of it is the intake and the exhaust part of it, right? Even though we are just talking about, the exhaust part, because as the name of the video implies, we're talking about exhaust, you have to also know what the intake is. So you can know that how the intake affects what gets exhausted out the engine, right? So first thing you're gonna go with, right, is gonna be something that we all call the intake manifold, right? That is the portion that is on top of the engine, right? So it's right where your air intake is connected to, right? So right where that filter is at, follow that hose, and that leads you through the throttle body, right? And right past that throttle body is your intake manifold. That is where all the air goes, and it separates it, and it goes into the different cylinders you have. If you have 4, 6, 8, whatever, it goes into the cylinder heads, the specific amount, right? It's never too short, too less on any of the, it's just calculated mechanically to where all the air possible goes through all the openings there is. So as that intake manifold takes in that air, because the throttle body opens up, right? And before I explain to you or show you a little diagram on how, once the air goes into the intake manifold, goes into the engine, the little thing I tell you about is the throttle body, right? So it's that thing that's connected to where your air filter is. So that throttle body is a kind of like it works on a hinge, a switch. I can't think of the word, but it basically opens up a flap. So it stays closed when the accelerator is, not fully closed, slightly open, but closed enough to where it's just not taking it in the air, correct? And as you step on the accelerator, it'll open up the throttle body. So it'll be a flap that's closed, and it'll just open, open. Now, once it opens, the air can get sucked in by the engine to go into the intake manifold and go into the cylinder heads, appropriately. So that is what that throttle body does. Most manufacturers don't have it set up to where the throttle body opens up fully, so that's why some people will get a bigger, wider throttle body and also have it ported, so it gives you the ability for it to open up fully. So you're getting both air going from the top and the bottom. Because like I said, it's like a lid. And like literally there's a rod right, like cutting it right in half. So when it flips open, it opens up two sides, you know, the bottom and the top. So if you're ever able to open it fully, clear air can go in there instead of it being restricted. Now, past the throttle body now. So the intake manifold, right? So that is literally where the air goes in, separates into the different cylinder heads, and it'll go as the engine pulls for it in the intake process of the combustion, right? So suck the air in, put all the air inside the cylinder, let it compress, boom. Once it combusts, right? Once it explodes, what comes out is exhaust, right? Sometimes in that exhaust there is a little bit of fuel, yeah. Sometimes there's still a little bit of oxygen that still didn't get burnt off, right? No system is perfect, and that's why sometimes if you're in the, you want to get your car to perform better, you can tune it to where it is efficiently using the air and using all the fuel, you know, because like if you're just dumping fuel out the tailpipe, that's not benefiting you at all. So when you exhaust, right, the combustion from the engine, what's going to end up happening is a valve will open up, the exhaust will leave because of that sudden drop in pressure. It'll leave right out the exhaust valve. All exhaust will come out, sometimes a little bit of fuel, a little bit of oxygen, and it'll go down the exhaust tubing. And it has to pass what they call a catalytic converter. It cleans all the toxins and all the carbon monoxide, and it does its best to filter out all that, you know, emissions, horrible for the environment stuff. It helps clean it out so that you're not spitting out that much carbon monoxide in the air. Anyway, so go through your cat back, your cat. As it goes through your cat, it'll hit your mufflers, right? So the difference between a muffler and a resonator is that a muffler, as it says, muffles the sound. It actually like tries its hard to suppress the decibel levels to make it friendlier for your neighbor's ears. But so, making that friendly for your neighbor's ears, that's what the muffler does. But the next one is the resonator, right? So what do you think? It resonates, right? So it cancels out some, like depending on the frequency, it cancels out some of the sound, but not all of it. It actually sometimes, gives it a little bit of a twang when it comes to the exhaust, right? So it will stop like the unnecessary like noises that you don't want to hear in the vehicle, and it just produces that nice, sexy rumble, that growl that mostly just V8 shoot out because you won't get that off of a 4-cylinder or a V6. We're talking about V8s here, right? You get that nice, beautiful purr with that resonator. Some people, right, will choose to remove the muffler, right? Because as long as you keep the resonator, it's fine because it'll at least keep it'll keep the unnecessary sounds from coming out and only the ones that you want to hear coming out, right? So a lot of people get a muffler delete, but a lot of people sorry. The government doesn't like it that you do that because it's really bad for emissions and all that stuff, the animals, the trees, the people, etc., etc. No bueno. But it does end up sounding really good, right? And that's really what the exhaust system is. Like if we break it down, right? It'll go from intake process, taking in the air, going to the engine, combusting, and then being forced out through your headers, right? Is what we're going to call it, the headers. There's a legit name for it. It's the exhaust manifold, but we're going to call it headers just because that is what most people in the car scene know it as, headers. So it'll go through the headers, down past the cat. It'll pass through the cat, depending if it's a single or a double cat. It'll pass through both of them, either hit the resonator or the muffler, and at the end comes out the tailpipe. Boom. That's how the exhaust system works. And it is very simple. Like it's a simple system and it works, right? You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, there's a lot of people in the car community, and this is now when we're going to be talking about, you know, back pressure, right? So a lot of people say, right, if you end up, you know, doing a straight pipe, right, deleting your cat, deleting your muffler and resonator, and you're like, oh man, you lost back pressure, and it's not good. The back pressure is bad, oh, it's not good. No. So that has been debunked already. So for the people that you still hear saying that doing certain things to your exhaust could make you lose back pressure, which means you'll lose power, back pressure is not good for the exhaust system. It's not good for your engine, period, right? Because it ends up like kind of like choking down your vehicle. You want a free flowing exhaust so it can, you know, maximize, taking out all the exhaust and being able to take your air in, right? But I'm not also saying like having zero back pressure is good either. You know, there's two extremes. You know, if you have too much back pressure, you choke it on the vehicle, you're kind of like shoving like the carbon monoxide back into the engine slightly, and that's not combustible. I'm sorry, like that's, you know how like fire works with oxygen? Carbon monoxide, not it, right? So too much back pressure, too little back pressure, they're both kind of like bad, right? So if you have too much back pressure, like I was saying before, had technical difficulties, before, you end up having your vehicle kind of like choked up. Now, if you have no back pressure, like zero at all, and it's just a free-flowing exhaust, right? Depending on how free-flowing it is, it could mess you up, right? Because you want, like, it's specifically made, right? These exhaust manifolds are specifically made to be able to almost like pull the exhaust out, right? And it gets angled properly and it goes whoop right at the tail end. Now, if you put something to impede it, that's like, what the one that takes up the most really is the muffler. That impedes a lot of it. It slows it down a lot, causing that back pressure. So the muffler is actually one of the biggest, I would say, root causes of vehicles having back pressure and why it, you know, isn't so good to have it. Now, removing the muffler could help with that. You know, I'm not saying that you should. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But removing the muffler will help your car breathe a little bit better because it's not being forced to slow down and cause the whole back pressure in your whole system, right, of exhaust. Now, I'm about to tell you something that's, this is when it gets a little bit complicated because now the terminologies I'm going to bring up to you are going to throw you in for a loop. But just stick with me and we'll get through this, all right? All right, science, right? So we're going to start with science right now. So, exhaust system, right? So the whole exhaust system is interesting, right? So like I was telling you, back pressure, we don't want it. Back pressure, goodbye. What you want in your exhaust system is high velocity, like low to no back pressure, right? Because you want that inertia, right, coming from the engine, you know, going through. You want it to kind of like help pull whatever the engine is pumping, because basically the engine is just pumping hot gas the whole time, because, you know, it's taking cold air, combusting it, and spitting out hot gas. So what you really want is for that to continue going. You don't want anything to halt it. So you really want a high velocity and low back pressure, right? So for you to get that, right, and let's say you want to work on your exhaust system and such, I'm gonna make this short and simple, right? This is gonna be kind of like a hip pocket class when it comes to long tube and short tube headers, right? So when you're talking about short tube headers, it's very, I guess, efficient, right? When it works with emissions and all that stuff, it's like immediately as it comes out the engine, it goes straight into the cat while it's still hot, and it's able to clean out all the stuff and then send it on its merry way, right? But then you end up losing, you don't get that much of that scavenging effect, right? So, scavenging, right? I'm gonna explain this to you, and it really happens when you're talking about long tube headers, right? So, long tube headers are usually like about yay big, probably a little bit bigger depending on your car. But basically, as it comes out, as it comes out the engine, the gases go down that long tube heading towards the cat, right? Now, as it's going down, it actually causes this crazy thing where there is actually high pressure at the bottom of the tube towards the cat and low pressure up top, which helps with the scavenging. It creates almost kind of like this vacuum that's like kind of like sucking the air, like the exhaust right out the engine. It's actually helping the exhaust phase of the engine by kind of like sucking up all the, the combustion, the after effect of the combustion, right? So pull that up, whoop. And the cool thing also about the long tube headers, because of their, their length and how they're specifically made, there's kind of like this reflection is what they call it, right? So as the exhaust hits the end of the headers, almost about to go into the cat, what it'll do is it hits almost like an area in the headers. Don't know exactly what to call it, but it basically will actually send like kind of like this like pulse, right, of the exhaust, small a bit, but enough to when it gets to the top. You know how sometimes I told you that a little bit of fuel and fresh air also ends up exiting in the exhaust. Unfortunately, well, because of that reflection, as it's trying to come out the engine, the fuel and the air, that actually pushes it right back into the engine, giving the engine a little bit more of its fresh air and fuel that it should have burnt before, and it didn't, right? So it's like a cool thing that like long tube headers do, versus the short tube headers. But again, one of the cons of a long tube header is you're not passing emissions at all. Like, it's just not happening because the exhaust is already cooling down as it's going down the tube. By the time it gets to the cat actually can't do its job and process everything. So if you have a long tube headers, especially on the cars nowadays, you are not going to be passing emissions. It's just the nature of the beast, right? So back pressure really is something that you don't want to have. So whatever you've heard in the past, or you've heard from your friends that work on their cars, and they tell you, hey man, back pressure, you need more back pressure, man, what the fuck? You lose all your back pressure. No. School them, man. Tell them that, no man, I don't need back pressure. Tell them, no, I don't need back pressure. What I do need is high velocity. And you can get that with the size of the tubings and everything when it comes to exhaust. It's a very tricky thing to work on in cars is the exhaust, because it is something that can help, your engine in its performance. And you shouldn't just not worry about it or spend money on like buying brand names. Okay, I get you, like getting certain things, but to be honest, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty details of the exhaust system, go to a performance muffler shop, right? A performance exhaust shop. They'll be able to sit down with you, actually make, exhaust that'll work for your vehicle and help, benefit you, other than getting one that one size fits most. It's always better to go with custom when it comes to exhaust, because you know exactly what you're going to get, what you want. You get exactly what you want no matter what the case is. But that is the thing about back pressure I want to inform you guys. It is actually not bad having no back pressure, just as long as you have high velocity. Because there is a such thing as having too much low back pressure that causes you to have low velocity, right? And if you have low velocity, it's stupid. So you have to find that middle to where you get high velocity, but little to no back pressure. I hope that this video was able to inform you guys. It's a little bit longer than usual, I think. Not longer than usual. Videos are usually 22, 23 minutes. This is probably around that time too, guys. Thank you for sticking around with me. Please do hit that like, subscribe, and ring that bell notification, and we'll be posting next week. Ricky and I should be doing posts on and off. So 1 week will be me, 1 week will be him. But that really just depends on Ricky. Yeah. But anyway, thanks guys for watching. I will see you guys next week or the following week. Who knows?